So just repeating for the purpose of the recording, today we're going to go over the purpose of an interview. We're going to talk about how to prepare for an interview. We're also going to talk about types of interview questions you can expect, how to answer those interview questions. We're going to do an interviewing exercise, both in the room and virtually. And we're also going to talk about asking questions of the interviewer, and then our other resources around preparing for interviews. So the workshop objectives, why are you here, what are you going to learn? Before I go further into our objectives, would anyone like to just share what you hope to get out of today's presentation? Sure.
Hopefully just get better at selling myself in an interview.
Perfect. Anyone else? Also on chat as well, if you'd like to share as well.
Maybe to get an understanding on how to answer some tricky questions that could come up in an interview.
Okay.
And how to approach them.
Perfect. Okay. If you have any particular questions you're interested in knowing how to answer, just shout out and we can go from that as well, because I don't think the presentation will cover that, but we're happy to talk about it.
Yeah, just to sort of break down what they were asking for in the question, and just to able to answer it confidently.
Sure. Okay, great, yeah. And then again, anyone in chat on Zoom, feel free to chime in as well. So while this presentation is a bit general in nature and information, feel free to ask any particular questions that you have concerns about or want clarified. Happy to answer those as we go along. So introductions. I want to invite the people on Zoom to sort of type in information. Otherwise, we're after just your name, your degree, year of study, and what do we say, Jen? Maybe the last place you went for a holiday, or?
I like it.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll do that. So I'll start with this gentleman here.
Hi, hello, I'm Joseph. I've just finished my CPA studies in professional accounting.
Great. And where's the last cool place you've been to holiday or a visit, maybe pre-COVID or during COVID?
Oh, yeah. These days, I'm just doing some online learning to pick up some software skills, in particular useful for this industry.
Okay, fair enough.
Just hope to get the interview soon.
Most work then. Okay, mostly work. Okay, cool. What about yourself?
Hi, I'm Cosmo, and I'm doing a Bachelor of Music, and I'm in a third. Hi, I'm Cosmo, and I'm doing a Bachelor of Music, and I'm in a third year. And what was the question?
Last holiday.
This holiday?
Or like, where's the last place you had a holiday?
The last time I went on the holiday, I actually went around Europe, going on a Europe trip, and it was actually really great over there, especially in the summer.
Hello, I'm Ayantika, and I'm studying Masters in Professional Accounting with Specialization in Studies. And actually, I'm an international student, so I came to Australia in February.
Okay.
And then during lockdown, I was just back home in India.
Okay, great, thank you.
Hello.
So it's right, sorry.
Hello, my name's Paul. I'm studying a double bachelor's degree in law and arts, majoring in international relations. In my final semester, last semester went on holiday was Bomaderry in Jervis Bay, just a couple of months ago in the break.
Hi, I'm Nina. I'm in my 4th year studying Bachelor of Arts, majoring in interactive design. And the last cool place I went to was New York.
Ooh, very cool. Awesome. Would you like to say? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm studying Bachelor of Commerce and Bachelor of Finance. I'm in my 3rd year, so your piece of paper there is wrong. Last place I went on holiday was Dubai.
Oh, lovely. Would you guys like to have just introducing yourselves, just saying your name and what we're studying, what year we're in, and the last place we had a holiday?
Hi, my name is Ron. I'm studying Bachelor's of Economics, Bachelor's of Business Admin. Last place I've been on holiday. Queensland? Yeah.
Nice. Great.
My name's Jenny, and doing a Bachelor of Commerce in major in Economics and Museum Finance. Last place we traveled was Singapore.
We've got some worldwide travellers here, Tyree. Everyone's doke. All right,
Okay.
I'll hand back to you. I'll see if there's anything in the chat.
Also, I didn't know if we do that. Okay. Just as a reminder, this session is being recorded on Echo 360, as Jen mentioned, so that just means your voice will be recorded, not your image. I just wanted to let you know, give you a heads up. Hide this. Okay, so now on to the agenda. So we're going to talk first about purpose and preparation for your next interview. So what is the purpose of an interview? Well, it's to opportunity to meet and assess yourself with the employer, to exchange information, to have a conversation, really. The best interviews are a two-way street. So it's not just you answering questions and kind of being interrogated. It's also the interviewee, or interviewer, excuse me, also talking with you, sharing their experience, sharing their insight as well. So it's more of a conversation. And of course, because it's a conversation, you can learn more about the job and the organization and get to ask those really in-depth questions. They might not be answered or explained thoroughly in the job advertisement. And then the employer can learn more about you in relation to the position. And of course, you can learn more about the position and the employer to see if you're a good fit for each other. And we often tell students that because you made it to the interview round of the application process, it means that on paper, be confident that on paper you are a viable, competitive candidate. And so the interviewer and the company just wants to ensure that you sound like the person that wrote the resume, and also, just as importantly, that they like you. A lot of it is likability factor. Can I work beside you physically or remotely? Are you going to fit and gel with our team? Do we share the same values, same work ethic, drive, etc.? And are you a great cultural fit for our organization? Meaning that the way we do work, is that going to mesh with your style of work? So, preparing for an interview, what do you think that you should do to prepare, or how have you prepared for interviews in the past? Feel free to shout them out as well as put them in chat.
Well, you just
Sorry. I've got to get quicker on this.
All right, I'm happy to do that bit.
Well, you just basically look at the job description and making sure you fill out what kind of skills that you need to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Anyone else? Pro tip here: when the job closes, you often lose access to the job ad. So make sure if that's the case, you save the job ad in a Word document or PDF, download it so you can refer to it later on.
So a few years ago, I went for a resident assistant position in like a university college, and I guess I just kind of Googled like some typical questions in an RA interview and thought of some answers beforehand. Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, great. There's a lot of information online about questions people have asked in the past, etc. So a lot of great insight.
So we've got Hugo here, said know the history of the company and why you would like to work there.
Absolutely, all very solid answers. So I'll do a big reveal now, but you already have captured a lot of them. So the very basic details, right? Location and time, how to get there, what you'll wear, type of interview, whether it's a panel, group, telephone, virtual, right? How long the interview will take, as well as what and who will be involved, and whether you'll need to bring or prepare anything. More of what you mentioned previously on the research bit is on this slide, so I'll go ahead and reveal now. So again, about the role in the organization that someone pointed out, reviewing your application and your resume as well that you use to apply for that role to refresh your memory as to what you put down on your application, especially if sometimes it's the case where you apply to a job, but you may not get an interview until weeks later, perhaps. Someone mentioned review the job description and the job ad to refresh your memory as to what's being asked. Consider what might be asked. That was a great tip as well from the students here today. And practice those questions. And then other tips, covered already, I believe, think about responses to possible questions that you could be asked. Identify any gaps they might perceive or might ask about in your application, from your application or from your resume that they might notice. Do a practice interview or several. We have resources to help you with practice interviews. Compile questions to ask them as well, which we'll talk about at the end. And then, just as important, get plenty of rest. This is not a cramming session, so you don't want to wait until the night before to do all this work. As soon as you find out you have an interview scheduled, just go ahead and start preparation as soon as possible. Do a bit at a time, so that way you're prepared, you're rested, you're confident, and ready for the day. Great video on, what not to do. I'll play for you now.
Mr. Dumbass, I can bring a lot to Dumbass and Dumbass. I'm a go-getter. Dumbass material all the way. So, are your man, Mr. Dumbass?
The name is Dumas. That's pretty thick-headed. Good enough.
Yeah, so root beer ad there, but it's important that you do your research. Even something as simple as the pronunciation of the interviewer's name. If it's a tricky one, try to Google it. Maybe call their office after hours, see if they say it on their voicemail. Call and ask someone in the office how to pronounce it. But that's all a bit of that preparation you can do before the interview that can really help you stand out on the day. So on the day, speaking of, for face-to-face interviews that is, arrive early. 15 minutes early is enough. Talk to the receptionist. Does anyone have an idea why you should talk to the receptionist other than being polite?
I guess it kind of demonstrates that you're proactive and you're friendly and you're collaborative, etc.
Very good points. Anyone else?
Actually, a lot of these front desks for these companies are like spies for the interviewer. So the fact that you can talk to the receptionist and get a good impression, it's good information for the interviewer themselves, because they usually ask the receptionist. And yeah.
Look, you're not wrong. The receptionist is the gatekeeper, right? They're the first person you see when you get into the building, last person you see when you leave, if you leave during business hours. And so they often are giving their opinions to the managers, hiring managers, other people. So making a great first impression with them is a great idea. Smile, obviously. Make eye contact. If you're comfortable shaking hands, you can shake hands. If not, in this post-COVID world, it's totally fine. People will understand if you're not comfortable with that. Also in face-to-face interviews, keep in mind that the moment you enter into the building and into the room, you're being interviewed, you're being assessed. From the moment you step into the office until the moment you leave. So be sure that you're as professional, as polished, but human, Don't be afraid to make mistakes or to stutter or to be nervous. That's all fine. But just make sure you're putting your best self forward from the time you're into the building and to the time you leave. So a bit about handshakes and body language. Look, again, if you feel comfortable shaking hands, that's fine. If not, again, we understand. Culturally, if it's for you not common to shake hands as well, that's okay too. But if you do shake hands, you want to make sure that you are having the right the way to do it. So obviously, no political politician type of handshake where you're shaking them gratuitously and overly so. Beware of personal space, that sort of thing. I think the pictures speak for themselves primarily. On the day for virtual interviews, which is what a lot of them are nowadays, right? Again, log in early, test out your connections, your internet speed, your audio, make sure your background isn't too distracting. Again, smile, still dress, business formal from the top down, because oftentimes when you are dressed professionally, you then kind of act professionally as well. Whereas if you're dressing like your hoodie or your lounge pants or what have you, mentally you might be more relaxed than you would be if you were dressed in a suit or a pantsuit or what have you. So do dress the part, even though they're seeing, from maybe your chest upward. And then make eye contact. Be sure to look at the camera, not the screen, like I'm doing now with the Zoom camera. It's easy, or it's natural not to look at the camera, right? To look at your screen instead. Or just be aware that the person at the other end is seeing you via the camera and not via the screen. Make sense? Body language. Relax and be at ease. Breathe evenly. Maintain eye contact with all interviewers. If you have more than one, face the interviewer with your body. Jot down the names at the beginning. Brian, Sarah, Teresa, Stephen. And that way when you answer their questions, you're able to address them by name as well. Use natural hand gestures to provide emphasis. Be yourself in an interview, right? If you're a person that's naturally uses hand gestures, which we all pretty much do, continue to do that. Don't be a robot, right? Monitor your body language. So no crossed arms, no slouching, obviously have an active posture. In a previous version of this presentation, there was a slide that mentioned that over 90% of communication is nonverbal. So it's everything outside of what you say. It's your body language, it's your tone, it's how you look, it's your facial expression. And only about 7% was actually what you said that made up your communication. So be sure that all your nonverbal bits are positive and polished as well. I think Jen's going to take over answering questions. But any questions of anyone so far? I'll run around with this as
You're
well.
doing a good job. Yeah, you can run around with the mic, Tyree. Thanks. All right, guys. So in terms of answering the questions in the interview, that's what you're there for. It's a two-way exchange of information. So please make sure you understand the question that they're asking you. In my past life, I've done quite a bit of recruitment, and I've sort of sometimes said to someone, "Oh, can you tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult customer?" I go, "Yes, I'm very organised." Hang on a minute, I didn't ask that. What happened there? So, but if it's maybe a technical question that they're asking you, or if you just, as Tari mentioned, it's quite okay to be nervous. We understand that, and especially as a recruiter, we can see that if you are nervous. So if you need a little bit more thinking time, ask them to repeat the question. Okay, as a recruiter, I would much rather take the time to ask the question again to help get the best out of you. The other thing that we need to do is we often say to students, a resume and an interview, it's your marketing tool, you're marketing yourself, but you need to find, I guess, that balance between selling yourself and being confident and not going too over the top. Yeah, so I guess it's all about, being authentic. So, what's true for you, but obviously, with maybe a little bit of glitz and glamour on the outside to try and make you be that standout candidate. And of course, we talked before in the preparation about being familiar with the job description or the job ad and linking the skills that you've got, that evidence back to the job criteria. So if they were sort of asking those questions around, can you tell me a time when you've had to deal with difficult customers? Talk about when those jobs you've had in customer service. Okay, so linking it back so they can really see that synergy there. Now, a lot of students come to us and say, this is all well and good, but how do I actually answer the questions? Is there a structure? Is there a magic formula? Well, guess what? We do have something for you. It's called the STAR technique. And we'll go through that on the next slide. But just when you are answering those questions, sometimes interviewers will actually ask you a question that it's either done as a little bit of a test that they know you won't be able to answer, or maybe you haven't had those experiences yet yourself. And again, that's quite okay, but I guess it's in how you do it. So if you haven't had the experience, they might say, can you tell us about a time when a customer was very irate and asked to speak to your manager? And you might think, no, I've actually never had that experience. I haven't had a lot of customer service experience. I've more been in, a back office admin role. So maybe what you could say is rather than, no, haven't got it. I actually haven't had a lot of experience in that, but I have had to deal with some, difficult team members. And I find the best way to do that is to communicate and empathise with the person. So at least you're demonstrating that you've understood the question and what skills they're looking for and the skills that you have. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right. Now, as Tara and I were putting this presentation together, we thought it's probably good to do a little bit of research into what our employer partners are looking for when they're recruiting for people. And this is sort of, a bit of a hot list of things that they're talking about. So it's very commonly, and again, for those of you who are actively looking, and I know a couple of you mentioned when you came in that you've got, you're applying for jobs, you've got interviews coming up. These are really the common skills that we see. So they're around communication, teamwork, interpersonal skills, an understanding of the organisation. And if I can just give you a little anecdote on that, is anyone here a chocolate eater? Does anyone know the brand Lindt? Yeah, okay. So not that long ago in student employment, we had a role with a company that was L-I-N-T, okay, it didn't have the D. We actually put someone through, do I need to click on that? Sorry,
Yeah, sorry, it's not showing up.
That's all right.
Sorry to interrupt.
We actually put a student forward, and then why did you apply for this job? Can you tell us a bit? I said, yes, because I love chocolate. But it was the wrong company. It wasn't a chocolate company at all. So I know that's probably the book, and she's made that up. True story. So please be aware of the organisation, and there's really no excuse not to. Okay, you can go on their website, you can have a look at their social media. It's all really good. Okay, Another thing is being aware of the commercial awareness, and this very much is the feedback we get from students and also from employers in those sort of finance industries. What's going on in the industry? Have regulations changed? You know, what do you need to keep up to date with? And I think, you know, post-COVID, can I say post-COVID yet? Fingers crossed I can say post-COVID, that a lot of industries have changed. You know, they had to pivot and do different things. You know, a lot of hospitality and restaurant type environments went to takeaway and delivery. So being aware of the changes that businesses have made, I think is a really important thing to do. What a good segue coming out of COVID, resilience. What were the key words? Resilience, adaptability, and we had to pivot to be flexible. But being able to show, you know, you guys all studied during COVID and you're still here to tell a tale and you're still going. Some of you may have been able to work during that time or do some volunteer work or do some other sorts of upskilling. So feel free to share those experiences as well. And the final one, I guess this is in no particular order, is that whole concept of emotional intelligence, or EQ. And that sort of comes back to knowing a bit about yourself and how you're impacting on other people and reading the room. You know, as careers advisors, Tyree and I are generally people that, you know, like to have a chat and relax people, but sometimes we work with students who have different needs. You know, they want answers very quickly, and it's all very, you know, blah, whereas our style is probably a bit, well, tell us about yourself and what are you studying? But, you know, we've learned, and that's part of one of our skills, to be able to adapt our style so that we're giving the best service to the person we're working with. All right, so in terms of the actual interview format and how it's going to go, this is commonly sort of, I guess, the 4 sections of an interview. So they always start off with what we call the opening questions. And these are, tell me a bit about yourself, why did you apply for the role, why do you think you're the best candidate? Now, believe it or not, these are icebreakers. These are supposed to relax you. But I know most students I work with say they're the hard ones. You know, how do I sell myself? They're hitting me straight up. But as you know, a HR person, we're trying to get you to relax and talk about a topic that should be easy for you, which is yourself. So, you know, having an elevator pitch ready or having some thought about what you actually want to say in this is really important. Then the interview will move on to what we call behavioural questions. And these are the ones that sound like, can you tell me about a time? Have you ever been in this situation? Okay, and they're really inviting you to tell a story. And this is where that STAR technique is really important, and we'll come to that in a couple of the future slides. Then it's also really common at sort of this graduate stage for employers to ask situational or hypothetical type questions because they want to see how you think. Okay, so they might say, you know, if you're in this scenario, and they might be assessing, you know, your risk adverseness or, you know, how prepared you are to take a risk, for example. Often we'll see these situational type questions in group interviews. Has anyone done a group interview? Yeah. So they put you in a table of people that you've never met before and you have to work together to solve a problem. So often they're hypothetical or situational type questions as well. And they're sort of coming towards the end of the interview. So this is probably coming towards the end. You've probably got half an hour or so. They'll ask you some other questions, you know, the good old, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? We paraphrase that now to what are your areas for improvement? They might also ask you something specific about the company, you know, tell you a bit more about the graduate program if there's rotation opportunities involved. And sometimes they might want to know a little bit about you and your career plan and what you have in mind, you know, what your goals are. Where do you see yourself in the next few years? What do you think your next steps will be? And they're just trying to get a bit of a feel for, I guess, how long you're going to stay with the company. But if you've got further study in mind or travel, various things like that. Is there any questions on any of that coming through? All right. Now we've talked about a few common concepts, and if any of you have come to any of our other presentations, which I hope you have as part of the Employable U series, or people doing the PDP, for example, you'll hear us talk about, you know, skills, employability skills. Now what I've got up here on the screen is the 14 employability skills that we've identified here at Macquarie that cover pretty much every job, every role, in every industry, every sector. Now some obviously a little bit higher than others. So if, for example, you're doing data analytics, obviously your digital and data literacy is going to be a bit higher than maybe someone who's doing a performing arts course, okay? But generally, a lot of these are very common. And I have to say, in my experience, and I've been in this industry over 20 years now, these are what we've seen. And some of them are a bit new, but you know, your communication, your organisation, your teamwork, your leadership, your problem solving, your relationship management, this stuff's been around for a long time because it's the essence of how you do a job. Now, if you remember back to that slide I showed you of what employers are looking for in skills, they're all up there, aren't they? Communication, teamwork, resilience. Some of the wording might be a little bit different, but these are here. If you're interested in finding out a bit more about this, we've got an employability skills workshop. I believe it's coming up next Friday, but we have that quite regularly. You can do some work on that. Or of course you could go to Employability Connect, and we have a whole section on that. And you can actually do a bit of self-awareness, fill in sort of a spreadsheet on how you feel you're going on these skills and how you can develop them as well. But I guess what we're trying to pull from this is these are the skills employers are looking for. So you need to be able to articulate how you've developed these during your time at uni, paid work, volunteer work, any extracurricular that you've done. All right, so coming back to these behavioural interview questions, because this is what you've all come here for today. You're going to want to know what questions are they going to ask me, what are they going to sound like, and we're going to do a practice really soon. Is everyone up for that? All right. That's your hint, Tyree, that you need to get the breakout rooms ready. Awesome. So as I said, they're going to be questions based off the job ad, but normally around communication, problem solving, maybe digital information literacy, organisation skills. Innovation's a big one. We're hearing many students come back and say, oh, they asked me what's something I've worked on, when did I use my initiative? And of course, relationship management, which is, you know, it can be teamwork, but it can also be that customer or stakeholder relationship as well. All right, so the best way to answer these, and I'll just play this video, hopefully, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about.
What is a behavioural interview? Behavioural interviews are used by organisations for both selection and development purposes. Like any other interviews and assessments, it's important that you are adequately prepared for behavioural interview questions. What are behavioural interview questions? Behavioural interview questions ask you to provide examples of how you have handled certain work situations in the past. What the interviewer is really looking for is evidence of your behaviours, competencies and capabilities in the workplace. A typical question might go something like this. Give me an example of when you had to deliver a project within very tight timeframes. Here, the interviewer is looking for evidence of your ability to plan, organise and prioritise. Rather than asking, how would you handle this situation, they are asking, how have you handled that situation? This way, the interviewer can gain factual information about what you actually did. To answer behavioural questions, we recommend the CAR or STAR method. Let's go through an example using the CAR method. Context. The situation or challenge faced. Sales had steadily declined for a year. When I became sales manager, my challenge was to manage my team effectively to grow sales. Action. The actions you took to complete the task or resolve the situation. Over a 6-month period, I set sales targets, introduced weekly sales meetings and implemented training. Result. The outcome of your action and or what you achieved. Provide facts and figures if you can. We exceeded our sales targets by 25% in the first quarter. To prepare for a behavioural interview, think about the skills, knowledge and attributes that might be required for the role. These things can often be found in a relevant role profile or position description. Once you have a list of what skill sets you think the interviewer is looking for, think of past work situations where you have demonstrated them. Here are some more helpful tips for acing a behavioural interview. Spend time thinking about what questions you are likely to be asked and what examples you could give in response. Give actual examples, rather than saying what you could or would have done. Rather than we, use I statements. The interviewer wants to know what actions you took. Use facts and figures when you talk about results as much as you can. Practice some mock interview questions with a friend, colleague or career coach. so you can answer confidently. Good luck.
Everyone make that go.
Just keep heading forward.
Just keep moving forward?
Yeah.
Promise?
Yep.
Okay. Good luck with what you're doing.
Scott, I know what sometimes. Sorry, folks.
Awesome. Yes. So, that video talked about the STAR method, which I mentioned before. Is anyone familiar with the STAR method? Okay. You should love a good acronym because you come to NQ. Okay, I probably use a lot of them, but this is a really good way to keep you on track so that you're getting your point across, you're answering the question, and in a timely manner. Okay? Because often a lot of people say to me, how long should I spend answering a question? Probably somewhere between 90 seconds to 2 minutes is what we're after. And just having this methodology hopefully will help you. So as I mentioned in the video, just to go over again if this is a new concept for you, probably want to spend about 20% of your time telling the story, setting the context, so the situation and the task, okay? I was employed at Big W as a customer service assistant. My manager asked me to go and work on the returns desk that day. Okay, all of a sudden, as a listener, as a recruiter, I understand where we are. We've all worked in even if we haven't worked in retail, we've all been into a shop and had to see a returns done. Now the action, this is where you need to spend the bulk of your time. Okay, we say 60% of your time, and this is where you're just demonstrating your competency or your skill. Okay, ideally what we want to know is about you though. So not what the team did, not what the manager did, not what someone else did, what you actually did, so the bulk of the story. And then the final one is the result. What happened? What was the outcome? You can even sort of take it to that next level. What did you learn? Okay, so maybe even if the outcome wasn't what you expected, what did you learn from that? Does that make sense for everybody? Fantastic. All right, so now what I'd like to do is get you to have a go at this, get you to have a practice, okay? So I'm going to ask you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, there's 8 in the room. How perfect. And we've got an even number I think on Zoom as well, so that's great. So I'll just explain the exercise and then Tyree will put our Zoom crew into breakout rooms. So I'd ask you to work in pairs, and I'd like you both to take a turn as the interviewer and then the interviewee, okay? So the interviewer, you get to choose the question that you want to ask the interviewee, and then that person will answer it, and then we'll swap over. Okay, is everyone comfortable with that? So, now we've got 2 questions here for you to pick from. So either tell me about a time when you didn't achieve a goal you had set yourself, or what are you doing in your free time now, and how can these activities assist you in being successful in the position? Okay. So I really encourage you to use the STAR method: situation, task, action and result. So what I suggest is maybe you might want to work out who you're working with, put people into the breakout rooms, and then we'll give you about 7 minutes or so to do this exercise. So you've got a little bit of thinking time and then doing that. Thank you.
Do you want to work together?
Oh, you dropped something.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Hi. So do you want to...
My name is Anna. I'm cooking. I love to do
I'll be late. Nice meeting you. So, let's think about like discussion. I'm not sure you already have some answers.
So tell me about the time.
You want to have a thought about it first?
I guess maybe a time when people
maybe you want to think about
it might be like during my final year of study, I had set the goal to like apply for graduate programs the following year, and I just found it was like too much to work part-time and study full-time and also be attending graduate programs. So I decided to take the decision to keep my part-time job the following year after graduation, and then apply for a degree, gap year, so I'll be more time to do after university. So I guess in the
So that's your interest with,
I need to think about
this semester we're planning to
what you should learn
work
in that
council and 5-week program.
maybe I could
that's right.
The difficulties of your driving probably help you.
Okay, sounds like
So the star technique is less some revision of the successful
I guess that's why I try to do
the first one
program
is situation, and then
yeah, I was thinking about
Right now I am just kind of taking up research.
But I might ask you a question. What do you do in your free time and how can you
actually some
I have in my mind, I just want to see if that's possible and if that's doable. So in my free time, I basically have some like some of the
And I'm doing CA.
and just for like videos to do students and just for have I done this, have I done
I just finished my CPA just in July. CA is basically or you must
expectation of my
CA is running
Okay, cool.
lots of information.
you're trying aviation.
I don't now. Everyone's finished their first one and we've switched over to the other two
Yeah, I think I'll go and ask you the thing. Yeah.
In my free time actually I would just do some reading and online. So this is related to education, right? For example, now I'm picking up MYOB. MYOB is a software that's very important for accountancy, especially in a small size company. So what I did is actually create an account and then customer list, inventory list, and then do some tracking, sales
Because at the end of the day, having a strong work life balance.
So I spend about 3 hours a day go online.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I have time to practice my own computer. I think these skills I pick up because of the knowledge I learned from skills, I believe learn
Not entirely.
to do the job. So I think in this not very experienced in this role, I can always have resources ready, trainers I get to know personally, and friends and graduates who are actually already in many years in this role. So they're all very helpful.
Okay, there's someone else in the second question.
Right, I might just give you one more minute and we'll start to wrap up.
Yeah, so you just mentioned the job that you're looking for. It's actually 3 minutes. But I'm not sure about 2060. But I really like touched.
You touched on all the points, like the start technique you did, because I did not like explain how that
I think for you is the link between the position that you apply and the skills. But your extracurricular activities in the studio, which I didn't get. I should have actually did that when I was studying. Very hard to read your resume because now I got nothing to put.
Yeah, I agree. At the end of the day, you need a job.
I think it's, how many more years do you have?
I have one more. Because I did it like I started my studies online, so I was on like a digital study loan.
Because of COVID, most of my time was online, so time
Right now
but the uni lecture also.
Alright guys, I'm really bad having to ask you to stop talking. I love it when you embrace an exercise, so thank you so much for doing that to me. Our Zoom crew are all back from the breakout rooms as well. Alright, so how did you find that activity? Is that like something you've ever done before? Is that something you were expecting us to get you to do today?
I guess maybe it was just a bit hard because we didn't really know what company we were applying for, so we didn't know the context of how to answer the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess it's just all about that concept of practice, you know, and now that we are able to do some hybrid delivery and some face-to-face delivery, it's great to be able to do that. Yeah, did you want to comment on something?
Oh yeah, I was new to this STAR concept, so I was trying to recap what actually has been shared.
Yes.
So yeah, it's great, and then I counted myself exactly 3 minutes. So
perfect. Well done. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for taking part in that. I hope that it wasn't too confronting for you. I won't get anyone to say what anyone else did, but please take that as, you know, an opportunity to reflect on, you know, how you answer the question, and I guess putting yourself a little bit on the spot, because that's what an interview is. Sorry, I can hear myself echo a bit.
Yeah.
That's all right. Echo with my head. Yeah.
Yeah. Got this down.
How's that now?
No, it's still there.
I think it's your headphones. All right. Apologies for that. So yeah, I think it's just really good because it's all about practice, isn't it? Often when I run this workshop, I say to students, anyone drive a car? How long have you been driving for?
2 years.
2 years. Do you think you're better now than when you first started?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So to me, it's a little bit about practice, but also having some coaching. So if you think about driving a car, it's getting up, what do you have to get now? 120, 150 hours to get your license, but most people go and get some professional lessons as well. And that's what, you know, people such as Tari and myself and the team are here for as career coaches. We can help you do some mock interviews if you'd like that preparation, but we also have some online resources. If you want to, you know, make your own notes, practicing, you know, film yourself. I know that sounds weird, but actually filming yourself is really good because it lets you understand your body language and your eye contact and how much you're smiling when you're in an interview, because it's actually a really nice thing to do. It relaxes you, gives you the happy endorphins, but it also lets the interviewer know that you're human. So thank you so much for doing that activity for us. Now I mentioned some of the resources that we have. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with my Kukuri Zone, but fantastic wealth of resources available to you at any time. So if all of a sudden you have to apply, or get yourself ready, you find out you haven't checked your email since Friday and you quickly look at them on Sunday and you've got an interview coming up the next day, this is the place to go. So this is the landing page, and there's all sorts of various things that you can do, but interviews and offers is where I want to focus on, because we have this great tool called Interview 360. So there's a lot of worksheets that you can read, but Interview 360 actually records you giving your answers, and it gives you feedback on how you answer the question, the type of language, how many times you say okay, but also your eye contact and body language. So it's actually a really powerful tool. If you haven't got that opportunity maybe to do it with someone face to face, we just want to let you know about that. All right, so guys, we're pretty much at the end of our workshop. Thank you so much for coming along today. For those, some of you I think I've seen before, you've been to some of our other Employable You sessions, which is great, but please stay in touch, get involved. Grab your phones out, click on that QR code for me. That will ask you, if you haven't already, to connect with our Facebook group, Employability Connect, or our LinkedIn group, Macquarie Uni Careers and Student Employment, and we'll also show you how to get into Employability Connect, where you can find out about other workshops and events that we have coming up. So, Employable You, we've survived a couple of weeks, we've still got a couple to go, but we're really loving presenting this session and engaging to students again, because we haven't really been able to do this since 2019, which seems so long ago. So coming up next week, of course, we have our pop-up stalls on Tuesday and Thursday. I know some of you have been to that. We have a chocolate wheel, you can spin the wheel, you can win a prize on the spot. Now, by coming to this session today, you're also eligible to go into the prize draw. But a couple of great things we've got coming up next week: how to write a resume. Now that's going to be a hybrid delivery. Fuji are coming to talk about innovators at work. It'll be a really good presentation. And then our MQSE team are going to present on what I love hating resumes, and they've got a really interactive way of doing that with a lot of employers sharing their pieces of information. If you can't make any of the sessions, the recordings are always available for you. Again, you can scan on that QR code for the schedule. I mentioned before the pop-up stall, and by coming along today, you've automatically gone into the weekly prize draw for a $50 voucher. But if you come to 3 events, you go into that major prize draw for $250. So it's worth coming along and seeing what you can get out of that. All right, just before I wrap up, I'm happy to stay and answer any questions, but thanks so much for joining Tyree and myself in the session on interview skills today. Thanks, guys.
So I have one question. So if you had a question to interview on the lines of, can you explain a previous bad experience with a manager and how you handled the situation, or is it a manager, maybe an co-worker?
Yeah.
How would you go about approaching that?
Yeah, good question, isn't it? So just in case people still on Zoom couldn't hear the question, was in regards to, can you tell me about a time when you've had to work with a difficult person, but they've even triggered it a bit more for you? We're talking about a manager or a co-worker. Okay, so first rule, do not bag out past employers. Okay, so think about, I guess, maybe the strategies you used more so than actually getting into the nitty-gritty of the horrible story, would be my advice on that. So you can say, well, unfortunately, we don't always see eye to eye with people all the time, but I'm someone who believes in having a chat, using my communication skills before something escalates to that level. What I did, what I would like to think I would do would be maybe see if I could just have a one-on-one chat with that person. So rather than doing it in a team meeting and turning it into a confrontation situation, see if maybe I could diffuse that, maybe ask them if we could go for a coffee, if we could meet outside out of the area. Again, trying to understand their point of view, seeing what happened that upset them, what I can do to improve next time. That would be my suggestion. I don't know, Tyree, if you want to...
Would you need to give a concrete example, or could you just do a general answer, kind of like this?
With a question like that, I've got to be honest, I'd probably be trying to go for maybe a little bit more general, because if that situation's happened to you, it's probably going to be very emotive. So it's going to be hard to talk about the skills you used and how it happened, rather than then they said and then I said. So I would probably go for something a little bit more general. And then a reflection piece, I think, on those sort of things, because they're really trying to find out about you and your cultural fit when they ask those sort of questions. So, upon reflection, maybe next time I'd look for the warning signs. I'd try and have that conversation earlier so it didn't escalate to that point, that sort of thing would be Yeah, it's a tricky one when they ask those sort of questions. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Anyone else have any questions? Yeah, Nina.
This is a bit sort of far in the future. This is a bit of a far in the future question, but if you want to leave like a job or a position, how would you do it without sort of causing any drama or anything like that?
Yeah.
It seems a bit,
It is, it's always awkward when you want to leave somewhere, and I think, in an ideal world, you'd want to think that you had a manager that was so excited that they trained you up to a point that you were ready to, grow your wings and fly and spread on to that next one. And I hope you do get managers like that, but you might not. So my advice would be to be professional. So, before you run around and tell all your co-workers that you're leaving, you let your manager know first. I think leaving that, it's a bit like last impression, first impression. When we first start a job, we've got our best clothes on and we do all the good things. So not slacking off in that last point, making sure there's a really good handover, checking in with your manager. I've handed in my notice. What do I need to do? What are your expectations of me in the last bit? Because unfortunately, from Tyree and his experience and mine, we've all seen people say, handed in the notice and they've checked out. Nothing else happens. So I think it's about communication and professionalism. That's the key.
And make sure you tell your manager in person or virtually if you can, and then put in your letter of resignation. So that way you're doing them the courtesy of telling them in person. And then of course abide by any HR regulations around how many weeks you have to give when you resign as well. So you're not just like Jen said, I'm resigning, I'm out the door next week. That's not the way you do things. You don't want to burn bridges. And so make sure you're abiding by that as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, great question. Any other questions? No? All right, you're free to go and enjoy your Friday afternoon. Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming on Friday as well. Thanks so much.